A brand new season of Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, begins today at Northern California's Sonoma Raceway. Reigning champions K-Pax Racing have moved on to chase glory in GT World Challenge Europe, which leaves a wide open field, 18 cars strong, set to vie for the SRO's North American crown. And it all begins now with qualifying for this weekend's twin bill of races at arguably the most technical circuit on the calendar. Hello everyone, welcome to Sonoma Raceway. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish once again is alongside, and we'll have Amanda Busick patrolling the pits for us throughout the course of the weekend and indeed the season. It's a pleasure to have your company, and Calvin, so excited to get started because this might be the most unpredictable season in recent memory for SRO America.
It really is. We've got 18 cars, spectacular fields spread across the three classes. Pro-Am is the heavy load there with 12 cars in that class alone. But, you know, it's really so many unknowns. There's some experienced teams coming back who we expect to be the favorites. There's some young guns who are making their GT3 debut here this weekend. So it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out.
And down among all the storylines down pit side is our own Amanda Busick. Good morning, Amanda.
Good morning, guys. And you talk about it being an unpredictable season ahead and how exciting it is for these drivers. You have to imagine that this team right here, your rating Pro-Am champ, now racing in the Pro category, the 93 Acura of Racer's Edge. And Ashton, I'm going to come to you first on this news. What a great all-season storyline to follow. But does it change much between the team? Driver one, driver two, I'm sure you guys can play around with that this season. But what's the biggest difference stepping up into the Pro competition?
Well, for me especially, coming from the Pro-Am and then moving into Pro is a big step, but it also brings new challenges, and that's something that I'm looking forward to and helping grow and develop as a driver. But, you know, I would like to say for Mario, he's been the Pro the whole time, so for him, I don't want to speak for him, but the job obviously is still the same. We still want to win. We want to, we would love to go back-to-back in championships, but at the end of the day, we have to take it race by race, and, you know, I'm looking forward to today and kicking off the 2023 season with Acura.
You gotta love the synergy and the fun and the commonality you can find between teams. Mario was telling me during this month there is a festival that's happening in Germany, and your team is kind of making fun, but appreciating the stash that Mario has. You'll see all the members with mustache on them, but when you look at the synergy between the teams that have to exist at this competition, how does that support you?
A lot. I mean, family atmosphere, it's a team sport basically, so the family atmosphere is a really high thing, which I really appreciate, and in the end you win and lose together as a team, and that's connects the team spirit.
In the Pro-Am category, Mario Fahnbacher took pole here last season in race number 2. Imagine big things for this team this season.
Mario has long had the nickname Super Mario. He's really going deep into that here, Calvin, with the mustache.
That's a fun group. They enjoy their racing, spectacular history since they made the move up into this top class. That team has won 3 championships in the last 4 years, including the Pro-Am Championship last year. First time in the Pro class, but I think John Meraki and the whole group there will be up for the challenge.
Cars are making their way to the pit lane to go for the first of 2 15-minute qualifying sessions. Qualifying session number 1 sets the grid for race 1. Qualifying for race 2 will follow immediately afterwards. So we'll talk more about that as we go on throughout the show. Let's talk about this schedule this year for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, starting here at Sonoma Raceway, then NOLA Motorsports Park, which stepped into the calendar last minute, it's safe to say, last season, but really was a hit among the teams and drivers in the paddock. From there, a return to Circuit of the Americas after a few years away, VIR, Road America, Sebring, and Indianapolis. Just a great calendar of some of the iconic tracks in North America, and this certainly is one of them.
It really is. I think this is one of the biggest challenges for all of the competitors this year to start off here. 2.5 miles in length, as you can see, 12 turns, but tons of elevation change, and the surface doesn't give you a lot of grip. I was watching a Premier League soccer match this morning, and it related me to a slippery pitch. You almost need deeper studs to actually bite into the surface here, and that's going to be the challenge here in this qualifying session.
And it's an abrasive surface, too. I'm not sure that this necessarily is as crucial during the qualifying, but certainly in the race, tire deg is going to be a major topic of conversation. It always is here at Sonoma.
It does, because, you know, if the car, I mean, you talk about the abrasiveness, but the track is slippery. Yeah. Everyone's talking about we're up on top of the track. We can't get the car to bite. And when you're sliding the tire, and you some of the drivers are going to be out there for nearly 50 minutes. We've got a 90-minute race here, so managing those tires, if it starts to slide, is just going to get higher and higher temperatures. You're going to get some tire degradation, then you're just hanging on there for the last bit of the stint.
It is green here in Sonoma, and as you can see in some of these shots, including this one, we've had a lot of rain this week and actually in the last couple of weeks in Northern California. And that has been a subject of conversation because many teams turned up to test a couple of days ahead of time. Wednesday basically was a write-off because it was so wet, so rainy. No one felt they could learn a whole lot from it. Thursday was rain-affected as well. So some teams that thought they might have some data on their cars, maybe it's a new car or new to the team at least, and they show up here without as much in their back pocket.
Very much so. We're just looking at the Conquest new Ferrari 296. Beautiful machine. 2 Ferraris in the field here this year. They are a team that are really on the back foot a little bit, learning that new car. They finished the year last year with a couple of entries and demonstrated great speed, but they've got a brand new machine underneath them, and they're learning the ropes, and it didn't help this week, as you said, with the interrupted sessions here. So be curious to see who can step up, who's found the balance here in terms of getting the right grip for this circuit here in these relatively cold conditions. It's still under 50 degrees ambient right now. You can see the sun is out and the track tap is going to gradually ramp up, particularly as we get to the mid-afternoon hours and we get to showtime for the races today. But certainly you're going to have to tread carefully. You can see no wheels on the cars right now. That comes fresh out of those tire heaters, out of the ovens, out of the blankets, and put them on at the last possible moment to give these drivers some initial grip as soon as they start to explore the track.
Does look like we are in a slight delay. I understand there was an incident in the GT America powered by Skip Barber Racing School qualifying session that immediately preceded this Fanatec GT qualifying session. The last 2 cars, though, that we've seen in the shots, we talk about all the change one year to the next, but so much stability for Riley, so much stability for Wright Motorsports with those 2 cars that we just saw, the Porsche and the Mercedes, their driver lineups intact one year to the next, and they figure to be right at the very top of the Pro-Am Championship battle.
Yeah, I think for Colin Brown and George Kurtz, they had 3 wins last year, but only finished 4th in the points, so they need a bit more consistency. But they've got great chemistry with that group. They do a lot of racing together, and I think they're going to come in as one of the Pro-Am Championship favorites, certainly. But we've got so many unknowns, as we said at the top of the show here, a lot of new talent on the grid, and it's going to be curious to see how they immediately get into the mix here this weekend.
Let's hear from one of the returning championship contenders in Pro-Am. Colin Brown is with Amanda.
Well, Con, you think of kicking off qualifying here today, and the guys in the booth have been talking about just the unpredictability that we might hear this season. As we kick off qualifying, the first effort on the season, any unpredictability that you foresee today?
Well, you know, it's tough. This series is always so competitive in SRO. You know, George's done a great job here in the GTA qualifying session we just had. So some good momentum, I think, going for us. We've been good in practice, but you know, you get to these mornings and the tire peak is so big with this tire, you know, hitting that lap at the right time with the right traffic gap. And, you know, we didn't drive since yesterday, right? So coming out here and trying to do your best lap on the very first lap with the tire warmers we're lucky to have for cold days like this makes it, you know, a bit of a dice roll, right? I mean, if you overdrive a little bit, you know, that's bad. You underdrive it a little bit, that's bad too. So I think, you know, just the small window we have to hit that big peak lap on these tires makes it a bit unpredictable for everybody.
There's been some changes in grading this season for some of the teams. When you look at the competition in the Pro-Am category, how do you assess it?
Yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, you know, we were in the battle last year, had an unfortunate kind of end of the last few races for us, but you know, these CrowdStrike rally guys have done a great job over the off season, and yeah, some guys have moved up, some guys have come in, so it's always a new cast of characters. But you know, George and I will be ready to fight no matter what. You know, it's gonna be a long, fun, hard season, I'm sure.
You talk about you and George. I saw the conversation between you guys before you got in the car. You've raced together for many years to now. That relationship, is it coach, driver, peer-to-peer? How do you look at it now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely more peer-to-peer, right? I mean, George has really come into his own. You know, I think his journey has been a long one, and it's been a lot of work for him, you know, years ago when no one noticed, and I think that hard work that he's put in has started to pay off where, you know, more folks start to notice, wow, this guy's got a lot of talent. And so, you know, it's neat to see that whole progression come through, and, you know, it's great to have someone out there this morning, get some laps, can help drive the setup forward from the GTA side to helping us in this car. So, yeah, it's definitely, you know, peer-to-peer, I would say.
Good luck this year.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You heard Colin allude to the GT America powered by AWS session that's already taken place this morning. And Calvin, with the 4 or 5 drivers that are in this field for Fanatec GT as well as GT America, how valuable is that track time this morning going into qualifying?
It's big because the track is just going to ramp up as the temperatures increase. So to get out of your car, you're in a rhythm. As Colin said, I haven't driven the car since yesterday. That sounds extreme because these guys will get in there and the pros will be immediately on their game. But for the AMs, I think that's a really nice sort of a warm-up session for this very important qualifying session here. I think with these 5 drivers that will have participated in that GTA qualifying session a little bit earlier, and that's really one of the main reasons they're doing it. They're trying to get extra track time and get the advantage of being on the track early this morning, ready for this very important qualifying session today.
The grounds crew here at Sonoma, hard at work already. If you don't know, in lieu of lawnmowers, this racetrack uses sheep to get the job done. Always popular when you come out to this particular racetrack. And here are the conditions. So close to 15 degrees Celsius, that's about 45 degrees Fahrenheit. And it is chilly, that's for sure. And these teams will love the fact that they've got those tire blankets or tire ovens, their choice, for these Pirelli P0s this morning.
Yeah, I'd have my toes dipped in there as well right now. I try and keep everything warm. But it is chilly, but the week is gradually ramping up. The conditions are getting better. So I think by race time today, we're going to see some of the best conditions that the drivers will have experienced all week long. But that obviously gives you other considerations. When we talked about tire degradation, the track temperature will be up a little bit. When you're doing long stints, maybe that's not so ideal. So it's very much a learning curve, particularly for some of these new teams, new drivers who are experiencing this form of competition for the first time, some making their debut at this racetrack. A lot of unknowns here.
Well, this team has been busy already this season. Racers Edge Motorsports, they've run the 24 Hours of Daytona. They ran the 12 Hours of Sebring. This is their first SRO competition of the year, but they come in with a driver lineup that's already worked together, a team that's already worked together in some big races. The rules are different, the tire is different, but still it's those repetitions that make a huge difference.
Yeah, they should be in a groove, in a rhythm very early in the season, whereas teams like this is a great new entry. I'm very excited about this young driver lineup. Seth Lucas, only 17 years old, amazing young talent, teaming up with Trent Nestor, who's going to be like his big brother this year. He's got a bit more GT3 experience to try and allow Seth to be the sponge and soak up that mentorship here this year. We're seeing Jeff Burton. He's making a move up to the Mercedes manufacturer this year. He's made a lot of moves over the last 2 or 3 seasons with different teams and different manufacturers, but he and Corey Lewis should be a factor this year. I think this Mercedes has a bigger sweet spot. I think for the AM drivers in particular, it gives you a little bit more of a comfort when you're driving the car. It's not as edgy, and I think that'll be perfect for Jeff to really put together some solid results this year.
There are a few drivers that are switching over to the Mercedes this year. Ziad Gondor would be another, and everyone we've talked to who has come from another GT3 manufacturer, they say the same thing, that you can go fast in all of these GT3 cars. There's no question about that, but there is something for the amateur driver in particular that the Mercedes seems to suit.
Yeah, and I relate it sometimes to, forget the car, just the compromise for a pro and an AM. A pro can set up a car where it's super edgy. He can drive it right on that knife edge, or she can drive it right on that knife edge, yet the AM cannot. So you've got to settle the car down. You've got to make it a little bit more in that zone where the AM driver is comfortable well and can achieve the lap time. So, and I think the Mercedes almost does that with a blanket over the whole organization and over the whole piece there. So it's a great car. It's become very popular. It's the dominant car. There's 7 manufacturers in this field, 6 Mercedes, 5 for the new Porsches, or split actually between the new and the old Porsche. A couple of new BMWs, the Ferrari, 2, Audi, Acura, and Aston, just 1 representation per manufacturer there. So lots to look for. You talk about the Acura, the 93. Is the Acura going to be the car? So that will come into play as well in terms of the balance of the season over the 7 venues that we visit. Here's
a new team. S's Racing. Will Hardiman will share with Adam Carroll. You might remember, if you followed A1GP, the open wheel series that pitted nation against nation, what was that, 10, 15 years ago, Adam Carroll actually won the championship in A1GP, and his engineer was Dave O'Neill. Well, who runs this team? It's Dave O'Neill. So when they were looking for a pro driver to put next to Will Hardiman, it was an easy call for Dave to make and an easy call for Adam Carroll to take. More on that subject throughout the weekend, I'm sure. Let's go, though, back down to the pit lane where Amanda Busick has found Alessandro Balzan.
Well, we've been talking about the 7 manufacturers on track here this weekend, and the 2 makes that are having new race cars debut here in the SRO America series. You have the Ferrari and the Porsche. Well, the Ferrari 296 is with Conquest Racing. Alessandro Balzan, we saw them last year at Sebring, jumped on the scene, but getting up to speed in this 296 this weekend. What can you tell us so far about the Ferrari?
It's a brand new platform. Of course, you know, we are all learning, starting from the drivers for sure. It was not a extreme jump from the 488. The Ferrari DNA for sure is still there. The competition is very high. We are learning. I mean, Conquest Racing, Corsa Horizon doing a great job. Every session we are finding more speed. Great support from Ferrari, helping us drive. You know, the electronics on this car are really extreme. So we are dealing with 3 different type of traction control, ABS settings. So it's fun. You know, beautiful day today. Sonoma is an amazing track to start the season. I'm very happy and proud to be part of this long season product. I'm gonna show we're gonna be competitive soon.
Well, great sounds down here on pit lane. There are tires on race cars, and race cars are fired. I want to go back to the relationship between you and Manny Franco. I know he was watching competition at the Indy 8 Hour, and you guys are going to be teammates here this season. When you look at his development, you guys are racing in the pro category. Expectations on the season for this team?
You know, the expectation comes really from ourselves, but I see Manny for the first time when he came to the Corso Pilota, the official driving school, and he had no idea about racing. And I remember I saw his video and I asked him how many days he spent on track. He said, Alessandro, this is my first time ever. I said, you need to be on a race car now and soon. And long story, he really jumped on a challenge car. He did amazing, almost won the championship last year. And for me, it's incredible to see how Manny, with after only 1.5 years of professional racing, is able to push a GT3 car to the limit. So it's a great pleasure to work with him. You know, it's super nice. We are really a nice family here. It's fun. So we don't really have expectation because we know if we work hard and we are doing our things well, we're gonna be competitive as we show already at Sebring last year.
Have a great season.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, when Manny and Alessandro showed up at Sebring, they were initially a Pro-Am entry, and that didn't last long.
Manny Franco is just remarkable what he's been able to achieve in terms of that learning curve so quickly, and I think he's going to be fun to watch this year. They're in the pro class because of Manny being bumped up to silver from the bronze driver grading, but Ferrari being built in France, that's a new one on me. Being built by the Orica company versus Michelotto, so big changes there in Ferrari built their GT3 machinery.
But the other changes is the previous cars, the 488 and the 456 before, 458, excuse me, before that, also the 430, they were all V8s. This is a V6 turbo, so that is definitely a change. And if you were wondering, because the road car is a hybrid, GT3 cars cannot be hybrid, so this is a purely internal combustion engine powered car to meet GT3 regulations. So many people so excited to see it, and it's making its global SRO debut this weekend here at Sonoma. So as you can see, cars are out on track. First of 2 15-minute qualifying sessions are underway, and it will be this session that sets the field for race 1 later on today. The second qualifying session sets the grid for the second race of the weekend tomorrow.
Saw that 43 Mercedes run by Real Time Racing, longtime Honda and Acura entrance, of course. Anthony Bartone has been very impressive similar to Manny Franco, burst on the scene in GTA competition at St. Petersburg. What did he do? He set fastest lap amongst many really more experienced drivers in race 2 there. So this team is very excited about what he and the veteran Andy Pilgrim can put together this year.
First car to cross the timing line to start a flying lap is the Racer's Edge Acura. Ashton Harrison behind the wheel of the number 93 reigning Pro-Am champion. But as we've chronicled, making that step to the pro class, and her rise through the ranks too has been something to watch over the past few years. Limited in experience, but she's packed a lot of racing into the past few seasons, and her pace has come up accordingly every single year.
So impressed by her pace, Ryan, but also her attitude and her discipline and how she goes about it. She's also associated with Wayne Taylor Racing, and she's really just been soaking up all of the expertise that was within that group with drivers like Ricky Taylor, Philippe Albuquerque, and just knowing how to go about this game of motor racing. And she has dedicated. She is totally immersed in this. This is what she wants to do. She wants to do it well. She just don't want to be another female driver. She wants to be one of the best out there on the track. She put together a really great year last year with Mario clinching that Pro-Am Championship. You can see she's up on the wheel early, and I talked about Anthony Bartone, how impressive he was. Well, a little mistake here early in this qualifying session.
Slides off the track in that Bartone Brothers Racing Mercedes run by Real Time this weekend. That's going to take an adjustment. Real Time for so long associated with Honda and Acura, but running the Mercedes here this weekend with Anthony Bartone and Andy Pilgrim, and unfortunately that car off track, and that brings out a red flag.
Right before Ashton was able to complete that lap, she just laid down best middle sector, which, to be honest with you, weren't a ton of drivers who had got through that middle sector yet when we went red. But here's Bartone. The grass is very wet, so if you do slide off, you're along for a bit of a ride here. You can see a little twitch there and just can't get it recovered, loses the front end. Just a low, lazy spin. Probably not a ton of damage. Might have damaged those right front dive planes. You can see on the left side there, those little flippers there that actually give you some downforce and grip going through the circuit. But I'd say he's just stuck in the mud, so to speak. Very, very wet. I mean, California in general has just been hammered this winter with a lot of rain and flooding.
A relatively benign spin for Anthony, member of the very famous Bartone drag racing family, so should feel right at home. Of course, there's a drag strip right along the front straightaway at Sonoma Raceway.
How cool is it to see green grass here? I mean,
it is.
For many years I used to come here in the summer, it was just brown, almost like a desert, and to see, it's almost like a golf course, do you know what I mean, when the different grasses come in, and you see the shape and the layout of the circuit so much better, it appears, from those big visuals that we're getting this morning.
Started coming here in the springtime a couple of years ago, and it was startling because just about every race I'd ever seen run here, it's kind of brown up on the hillsides, and when you see the green, you see the sheep roaming around. It's a bucolic atmosphere, I think it's safe to say, this time of year in Sonoma.
Speaking of green, this is going to be fascinating to see how these guys could do. Dominant last year in GT4 competition. Stephen McAleer and Eric Filgueras. Filgueras' first time in GT3 machinery. He's said he's drinking from a fire hose, literally, because it's such a big step up. They haven't done a ton of testing. Just one day in the car. There we see Anthony Bartone. This is coming up the hill here into turn 2, just loses the back end a little bit, tries to correct, doesn't have enough tire temperature yet and grip to be able to deal with that. He's out of the car, so a little bit surprised here that he's not hanging with the car.
And the question that I have too then is, does this car get back? Because remember, the second qualifying session is right after this one concludes, and we've always said it, an incident in Q1 costs you double, because it affects you for the first race, it can affect you for the second race too. Let's take another look at it here, coming up the hill.
Right here, just a little twitch right there, tries to correct it, then he's out wide, he's kind of in the gray, he's not on the line anymore. It's a low, lazy spin. I didn't think he had a big impact there, but maybe there was an issue with the right rear corner, lost some drive line or something, but didn't look like the impact was heavy enough to really do any mechanical damage.
Have to agree. Try and chase that issue down, and hopefully we see Andy Pilgrim in that car. That is the only AM class entry here this weekend. I understand there might be some other AM class entries circling around, evaluating Fanatec GT World Challenge America powered by AWS later on in the season, perhaps as soon as the next round of the championship. But this definitely does affect your session here. It puts a lot of pressure now on these next laps out of the pits. That clock continuing to tick, Calvin, and there will not be many chances to put down a lap, so you better not mess it up.
No, the pressure's really going to be on now, so I could start to ramp things up to another level. I'm not sure what this team is up to. You're allowed to change tires in between the first qualifying session and the second, so unless they've already elected that, or maybe they're just getting tires back in the oven.
That would be my guess, yes. Would you get that heat back in, because anything that you had built up prior to the session probably has dissipated thanks to this red flag. You can see on that mirror for the Racer's Edge car, you had the Wayne Taylor Racing logo next to the Andretti Autosport logo. All three of those teams collaborating in a number of championships this year.
Doesn't look like a ton of damage, like just as it indicated from the high shot that we were looking at initially, Ryan. I don't think there was a big impact with that tire wall there for the 43 machine. You see Ashton Harrison totally focused there, getting ready to go. She had a pretty good lap coming together there, but I'm sure she's going to go on and get a jump on this next session, try and cut and pace what she was up to from that earlier run.
How can you use this to your advantage as a driver? You've gone out, you've done, effectively in her case, one push lap, almost made it to start finish. So you've got that data basically in your mind that you built up. What are you thinking about while you're sitting here getting ready to go?
Just subtle adjustments. I mean, the balance is going to change as you get more and more temperature into the car and into the tires. So it's just an initial feel. So it'll just be a read on the racetrack. Ashton is not one of the drivers who participated in that GTA qualifying session early this morning. Handful of the drivers did. So for her, she's into her rhythm now. It's actually good. It's actually a chance to reset, think about what the car's doing, just your hand speed and how aggressive you are with your inputs. Just slow everything down a little bit, and you should be feeling good, but obviously the clock is not on your side, so you realize you might only get 1 or 2 laps here to make it happen. It doesn't help someone like Eric Filgaris. We talked about him so shy in terms of experience with this type of machinery. Every lap is important to him, so to lose 5-10 minutes of this quali session is not in his wheelhouse, so to speak.
But how cool is it to see Eric and his co-driver Stephen McAleer, the reigning champions in the silver class, in Pirelli GT4 America, plus the RS1 team, all taking that big step into GT3 racing. Of course, Stephen McAleer has GT3 experience aplenty, but this is all new for the team. It's all new for Eric, but it shows that there is that ability to progress through the ranks within the SRO America umbrella.
And I think it really typifies the excitement about the championship this year. So many unknowns, so many potentially great combinations, and just see how quickly they get up to speed, how quickly they gel, and start to put points and potential podiums and wins on the board.
Here's George Kurtz. He's been busy racing prototypes already this year at Daytona and Sebring, but back behind the wheel of the CrowdStrike Mercedes.
Came up an inch short, literally, of winning a 24-hour race at Daytona.
Chatted with him about that at St. Pete, the GT America season opener a little while ago, and basically all he could do was laugh. You know, what else can you do to lose after 24 hours by such a small margin? But he knows.
The irony is that the driver who pipped that team to the line, he's going to team up. Colin Brown and George are going to be running in LMP2 at the Le Mans 24-hour race this year, and Alan, who was driving the car that beat them to George's team to the line, is going to be in the same car. So pretty ironic.
Should make for some interesting conversations. Yes. I suspect. Looks like, based on what our crew members are doing there, that we're getting close to releasing these cars back out onto the track, but just 4 minutes and change left in Q1.
Yeah, that's going to make it tight. Probably get 2 flyers in. They'll get around, start a flying lap, and then get back around to potentially start another one. But you're not going to want to hang around much. You're going to want to try and get out there and hustle around here so you can get 2 flying laps potentially on the board.
Always important to find that space.
Is the elevation climb. I mean, sometimes we don't really, when you're behind the wheel, certainly you understand the elevation change, particularly coming up here through 3A and B. I mean, you're just looking at the horizon. Right now, as these drivers are turning right, you're just looking at the sky, and then you plunge over the hill. You have to be committed. You have to be spot on with the positioning of the race car there. Otherwise, you will run wide. And then you're in catch-up mode by the time you get to the brake pedal for turn 4.
Just a few numbers as far as elevation change is concerned. It's 160 feet, or nearly 15 stories different from the highest point of this track in turn 3A down to the lowest in turn 10. So it is a major adjustment in elevation over the course of a single lap around this 2.5-mile track.
This is a decision maker right now, because what you don't want to be is bottled up in traffic here when you're starting your first lap fly with potentially only 2 laps to get it done. So do you try and get to the front of the pack like Eric Filgaris is, and you've got clean air on the nose of that race car? Or does Ashton Harrison try and back up? As she starts to back up, the pack is behind her. So she's kind of caught out a little bit. Not ideal positioning as Chandler Hull is trying to make a move there. That car's been very quick here this weekend, the 94 car. Here we're looking at George Kurtz, one of those drivers who does have track experience this morning in GTA qualifying.
Does look like he's found a nice gap for himself. No pressure behind. A lot of space up in front to Chandler Hull. That could set up very well for George Kurtz as he chases pole position here this morning. A few cars, 6 of them in fact, are credited with turning laps. And that number is increasing now as people come over the line, but they're not representative. So basically, the time is now. If you need pole position, if you want pole position, you've got to go out and get it in the next 2 minutes.
You could see right there the aero effect. The air was taken off the nose of the Acura, and suddenly Ashton Harrison had a big handful of understeer there trying to get through turn 2. This is where the experience has maybe caught out Ashton a little bit. She is not where she wants that car placed in terms of clean air on that race car. And she's going to be getting antsy here.
Puff of smoke off the left front, a couple corners back for Ashton Harrison. She's got Eric Filgaris right there ahead in the RS1 Porsche. And Chandler Hull is closing in on that duo as well. So he might find himself a bit caught out by the traffic as he seeks pole position in his step up into the pro ranks.
I'll tell you what, I'll give Eric Filgaris his due. I mean, he does not have a ton of time in this car, but he had the confidence in himself to I'm not going to let these drivers by have a bit more experience right now. I want this track position. I'm going to try and maximize whatever I can get out of these couple of flying laps.
Oh, look at this. Chandler Hull has run up to the back of that NSX. He's flashing those headlights, coming to the inside. This is going to scupper the lap for both of these cars, and Ashton is not having it. This is qualifying, folks.
This is crazy. And he's got a big decision to make here. Does he back off and try and get a nice flying start to this lap? Now they're racing themselves down into the final corner. This is turn 12, the big hairpin. Ashton going to try and run it around the outside. This is not what you need to be doing if you're setting up a lap.
Side by side down the pit straight. Great for Eric Filgaris. Oh, and a twitch there from Ashton. Still side by side. This is going to compromise this lap.
Yeah. You could sense as soon as they were out that Ashton needed to back up, try and keep Chandler back there, but create a gap to Eric Filgaris. Now they've compromised that. That kink onto the front straightaway there, suddenly when you're not able to open up your hands, really has an effect there. You can see the twitch that she had there right through the apex.
Filgaris briefly held the top spot. He's been pipped by one of the Wright Motorsports Porsches. That's Adelson making his debut in the championship. Hardiman, very impressive on his debut, running 3rd at the moment. Manny Franco, Hull, despite running side by side, still is 5th. Time has expired, so anyone who has not started this next lap, that will be the final lap for them. Checkered flag out already for Torres and Weatherall. Well, that did not work out well at all for the Triarci team, with Weatherall down in 17th with really no representative lap time.
That was why it's so important to get out there, because with the clock ticking, there were only a handful of cars that were getting this second flying lap. Everyone else didn't get back around and beat the clock to start another flyer here. Eric Filgaris has done a great job by managing that traffic situation, has had clean air, and is putting together a pretty tidy lap right now. He's already running 6 in this session. And as a purple, what a debut this could be for him in GT3 competition if he can finish off this lap.
First ever GT3 qualifying session for Eric Filgaris. He needs to find 0.8 of a second to take the pole away from Adam Adelson. Here he comes to the line. Checkered flag waves, and Eric Filgaris goes to P1. Here comes the rest of the field. Chandler Hull jumps to P3. George Kurtz up to 4th. Adelson still in 2nd. This is his GT3 debut in SRO America. Keep that in mind. Charlie Luck up to 7th. Seth Lucas goes P5 for MDK Motorsports in that team's debut in the championship.
See the little colored bars on the side. Purple means fastest in sector. Yellow means you're not as quick as your previous best. Green is a new personal best, and if they're red, they're in pit lane.
KG veteran James Safronis P5 on his dash to the checkered flag. Looks like Adelson has called it quits. And we'll start on the Pro-Am pole, but...
What a surprise.
Wow.
We talked about the unpredictability of what was going to happen this championship season, and we're seeing it right out of the gate here in qualifying number 1 with last year's GT4 champions putting on the pole for the first race here this weekend.
It's a surprise in a sense because, as we've said, this is the first qualifying session in a GT3 car for Eric Filgaris. He does not have much seat time in a Porsche 911 GT3R, but if you look at what he and Stephen McAleer did in probably GT4 America last year, nearly running the table in the silver class, you know the talent is there. I always felt like it was a matter of time, but maybe the time has come a little quicker than we all anticipated.
Yeah, it was an interesting session. Certainly, I thought it was going to hurt Eric Filgaris in terms of not getting into a rhythm, not getting the extra laps he's been yearning for, but he just showed the confidence. He knew that I can get this done. I've got to get that clean air on the car, let those others squabble behind me, and he just went out there and got the job done. The
first Rova Pole Award of the 2023 season belongs to Eric Filgaris and RS1. And it's going to be a happy bunch, but they don't have much time to rest on those laurels because they'll turn these cars right around and head out for Q2 to set the grid for tomorrow's race. But what a remarkable debut for the young man who has spent the last decade or so chasing this dream, found himself in a great situation a couple of years ago, racing in Porsche Sprint Challenge North America, parlayed that into Pirelli GT4 America last year, and now into the big show, where he will sit on pole and lead the field to green later this afternoon.
Yeah, and he's got an ace now jumping in. Stephen Maglia, they hug and congratulate, and Stephen Maglia will be up on the wheel here.
No doubt about it. And Amanda Busick is down amongst the chaos. Amanda, can't wait to hear from the RS1 team.
Oh man, you can see Eric Filgaris getting Stephen Mackler ready to go back out. Tires are going on this Porsche right now, and you were talking about the success that this team saw last year. That's one of the questions that I'm going to have for Eric once he gets his helmet off and over to us. Is you guys were saying we know what this team was capable of last year, but did we know that this success could happen so quickly here in the GT3 ranks? Not saying that we are surprised, but we got over here and the team was talking to each other, congratulating themselves as well. And as you talk about the Rova pole position, we are going to have some presentations to them as well coming in. Just an exciting bunch down here. Eric, I'm going to ask you to get your helmet off. Congratulations, bud. We got a presentation for you. Picking up pole in your debut here in the Fanatec GT World Challenge. This is yours. We were talking just you finding the pole here today, and as you said, we know what this team is capable of. We know what you accomplished last season. Were you expecting this so far this season at the brand new season, new race?
You know, it's hard to come into a brand new platform like this with an expectation. It was just a lot of hard work. It was hard to believe that we would have been able to do this 2 days ago. Because everything is just so new for us, but I think this shows the strength of this team and their qualities. So really happy to be starting P1 for today's race. We'll see what Steven can do. I have all the faith in him and this RS1 team, and you know, we just continue to keep raising the bar, and that's what we're planning to do.
Congratulations, Derek.
And it's a pole as well for the 992 version of the Porsche 911 GT3R, making its SRO America debut this weekend. It's an interesting mix of 992 and the previous generation 991.2 that we've seen in previous seasons. There's some of both racing here this year, but the car looking very strong at Sonoma.
Yes, Colin Brown's going to be behind the wheel of this for CrowdStrike machine now as we've made the driver changes. This is qualifying session number 2. It's almost seamless, right? It's like come in, it's almost like a race pit stop, throw the other guy in, throw some tires at it, and go get him. So you can see here Colin backing off. He doesn't want to be right on the tail of Stephen Mackler, who's now aboard the number 28 RS1 Porsche in front of him. He's trying to set up this qualifying session a little better than we saw some of the drivers late in the going in Q1.
For the Pro-Am lineups, it's the pros in the car by regulation for Q2. Of course, all pros in the all-pro lineups. We will see some very fast laps. And also, these drivers have the benefit of getting that data from the first driver for the team out on track, passing along notes on track conditions and things of that nature, so the speeds should come down.
You can see the driver ID, I'm sure what's happening there, showing Kurtz in the car, would be Colin Brown, so get that corrected, or maybe it's a technical issue with the race car itself. So now he's on a flyer here, trying to really just feel the car out. Talking to a number of the drivers this weekend, they said these Pirelli tires come in almost instantly, almost catches you off guard a little bit, that the grip is there immediately. So they don't refuel the cars in between the two sessions, so the cars are actually getting lighter as these two qualifying sessions progress, so the car potentially has more speed. This is the carousel. Look how he's really digging deep there, really asking the front end for a lot of grip there mid-corner, just throwing it out of that corner using every inch of the road. You need straightaway speed right here, then heavy braking, a little bit bumpy under the brakes there. Just getting that front tucked in. You can see the car's doing exactly what the driver's asking it to do. This is the sweet spot. Cool conditions in the morning, good grip from fresh tires. It's almost like happy hour early in the day.
This is a tricky little racetrack, and Calvin, you were telling me off air, you raced here a couple of times in your career, and this is one you had some trouble wrapping your head around.
I did, particularly that first sector with the elevation changes, the positioning of the car, knowing where you had to have the car placed and when you could commit. I always felt like I was feeling every single corner lap after lap rather than really having it nailed down. So that's the challenge for some of these drivers who are going to be competing here for the first time. Colin Brown, though, has a ton of laps around this circuit. He knows it like the back of his hand, and they're looking to start off the season. George Kurtz had a nice qualifying run up in the top 5 there, and Colin will be looking for better than that. I think, look at the car. With the tire pressure's not up, the car's a little bit lower to the ground, so you get that compression up through the bumps. The car's bottoming them out. They're almost throwing them sideways.
This is the Rapid Scotsman, Ryan Dial, in the car that Justin Wetherill qualified for race 1. Triarsi Competizione, team that debuted a couple of years ago, ran a full season with 2 cars last year. Single car effort this year in Fanatec GT World Challenge America, and it's the returning duo, as mentioned, of Dial and Wetherill. One of 2 teams running the new Ferrari package.
Yeah, they've been pretty happy with it. The team has got some experience in running some of the big endurance races earlier this year in North America, but for Justin, this will be his first race laps here this weekend. Same for Ryan Dial. He doesn't run GT. He runs prototypes in those other endurance races this year, so that'll be his first race laps in anger here this afternoon. But this is that team I'm really excited about. 2 young guns behind the wheel now is Trenton Estup, teaming up with Seth Lucas, MDK Motorsports, Mark Vami, and Will Bamber is involved with the management of that. Brother to Earl Bamber, who's a ex-Porsche factory driver. They have a ton of experience on that pit wall. They're expecting great things this year.
They've been very busy racing globally. They've recruited some big names to drive their cars. Jan and Kevin Magnussen. Kevin was supposed to drive with him at Daytona and couldn't, but they have driven together over in the Middle East, going back a couple of months. But new program and GT World Challenge America here for MDK Motorsports, team run out of the Columbus, Ohio area. In fact, their race shop is the former race shop for Meyer Shank Racing. 24 Hours of Daytona winning team earlier this year. Trenton Estup, a young man who came up through the Porsche ladder and has had some good opportunities at various times. Won the first Gulf 12 Hour that happened last year. There were 2 in one calendar year last year, somewhat confusingly, but one in his class in a Ferrari, and actually was driving with team owner Mark Kwame in that race. So those 2 have been working together for some time, and they've got high hopes here this year.
John Edwards aboard the number 38. He's going to be full-time here. He's a BMW factory pilot, one of the few platinum-graded drivers that we have in the field here this weekend, and he's just trying to go around here, it looks like, and find some clean track space and be ready to put down a fast one.
Paired with team owner Samantha Tan, who was just named a BMW brand ambassador this weekend.
Always unique liveries on these ST racing machines.
Yeah, they are sharp. This is the team that got the first global victory for the BMW M4 GT3 1 year ago. Ran a partial schedule last year.
Yeah, and I think just looking at John's pace here, unless he has a technical issue, I think he's just really trying to bring these tires in very gradually. He was one of the drivers who commented to me yesterday after a practice session, I can't believe how quickly these tires come in. So I think he's just prepping a lap, then it'll be hammer time.
The risk with this, of course, is the time is running out, and we've seen the possibility of a red flag, how that can chew into the time allotted for a qualifying session.
There's no guaranteed minimum green flag time in these quali sessions, so you got to be careful. You're definitely rolling the dice a little bit by waiting to put one on the board, because if someone has an issue like we've seen so far today, and you can see John, he just doesn't want any part of that. Traffic, Jan Halen, I think, just went by him in the 45, and he's off and on. This is not ideal for John Edwards as he's trying to prep his lap. He's now got Jan Halen. Halen's going to be up on the wheel, but he's going to have the tires a little bit dirty here. You can see Edwards has got to make a decision now. Does he let Jan Halen go? And no, I think Edwards does have a problem because he was driving very slowly. Now he's in pit lane.
Oh, Colin Brown with the spin.
It's the top of the hill. That's turn 2, isn't it, where we saw Bartone off earlier.
It's Elliott Skier that came flying by in that green Porsche. Previous generation Porsche shares that car with Adam Adelson, who was so impressive at Q1 just a little bit ago. And again, we should apologize. It looks like some issues perhaps with timing and scoring, so it's hard to tell you, frankly, what the situation is right now. I think John Edwards does have the quickest time in the session, I think, but it's a bit unclear.
That would explain him just maybe trying to listen to the information, the communication coming back from his team about where he sat. He said to me yesterday it could be just a one-lap flyer, so if he has put that one-lap flyer in, he was maybe just trying to stay out there, seeing if anyone was getting close on their sector time. So maybe just to be tire management at this stage. Maybe he's happy with what he's done. Again, we don't have timing and scoring accuracy right now to really ascertain exactly what's going on, but potentially that could be he's got a good one in the books. Didn't want to put any more laps on those tires because he's going to have to start on those race tires this afternoon, or tomorrow, excuse me.
Well, with drivers the caliber of Jan Halen and Colin Brown having off-track moments within the last lap, it goes to show how difficult conditions are and how difficult this track is, let alone the conditions, but certainly with these cool temperatures, even with the tire warmers, Calvin, it is not an easy place to get around.
No, it's really just finding that sweet spot, getting the pressures up, getting the temperatures up. Jan Halen, after that little miscue, is trying to find a nice clean lap here. Again, we can't give you sector information right now, so it looks like a good clean lap, but we're not really sure whether this will put him on the pylon in terms of his position. And again, this qualifying session sets up the grid for tomorrow's race, race 2 of the weekend, where the pros will be doing the starts.
Really good year last year in the career of Jan Halen. Finished second in 2 different GT3 championships. Won his class at the 24 Hours of Daytona last year as well. Man who has found a second career for himself, it seems.
Yeah, he's always had super speed, had some time in IndyCar over here, and he had a big year in 21 as well, winning the Porsche Cup, which is a global points championship for all of the customer racing Porsche drivers around the world, and he had the most points of anyone on the global stage, so that's a big accolade to achieve.
Winning the Pro-Am Championship in GT World Challenge America that year had a lot to do with winning that Porsche Cup. Very prestigious, as you mentioned.
So a lot of these pros bailing early in this session, and again, they've probably reached the peak, feel that they can't get any more out of the... Sometimes you feel, oh, that was a little bit better lap, and you look down and just that percentage of grip has gone away. You just lose that little sweetness in the tire, and you keep pounding around thinking, yeah, I executed better, but guess what? The grip level and the performance is no longer there.
Spencer Pumpelly is driving this Porsche. This is the previous generation 911.
He's been quick here this weekend, been regularly up in the top 3 or 4 cars, so no surprise. He's had a lot of success with not only GT4 competition over the years, but whenever he jumps aboard one of these GT3 cars. I remember he and Dane Cameron winning at Lime Rock for Magnus Racing a few years ago in SRO.
The big question mark is, this is new for the team racing at this level. ACI Motorsports out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. A lot of experience running 911s, primarily in 911 GT3 Cup competition. Making that step up. Kurt Swearingen and his team, they're active in Pirelli GT4 America this year too. And there is Pedro Torres, who's been working with Spencer for a few years now. Hopping into the big show. Of course, it's Spencer, though, behind the wheel in Q2. Pedro had qualifying duties earlier in Q1.
To see Tom Dyer getting another shot at GT3 competition. Had a nice chat with him yesterday. He did a full season in an Acura back in 2017 with real-time racing, pairing up with Mark Wilkins when the Acura NSX first burst onto the scene. Did a few more races in 2018, but been a big coach for James Sofronis and the whole GMG group, and James certainly saw the talent and his technical ability as well in terms of setting up a race car. This is the Audi, which has the Evo kit, made its North American debut with James Sofronis at St. Petersburg a few weeks ago. And this is another one of the teams who just said, we need to get this car biting the racetrack a little bit better. Had a fueling issue yesterday. They had to switch the nozzle in terms of which side of the race car the fuel goes in during the pit stops, and had an issue with that, so missed the last practice session yesterday. That's not ideal preparation for this weekend.
No, but James had a great qualifying effort in Q1. Got to P5 late on his late flyer, in fact. So really nice job. Now Tom Dyer qualifying for Q2. And again, our apologies. We're as much in the dark as you folks at home are, I'm afraid. Some issues with timing and scoring, so really not sure what the state of play is here at Q2, which makes it hard to tell this story, but it's great to know
if the drivers know. They may know what they have personally, but they may not know how they stack up. So just go for it and see where the dust settles.
Yeah, that's a great point. And still, we watch as Adam Carroll pilots the Estes Racing Mercedes. Great to have the Northern Irishman as part of this program. This is a new track to him, as will be every track on the circuit as far as racing is concerned. I think the only racing he had done in America were 2 IndyCar starts 15 or so years ago at Watkins Glen and Mid-Ohio, 2 tracks that are not on the Fanatec GT World Challenge America schedule. So he's done some testing at COTA, tested here prior to this race just a couple days before, but he said, yep, we're going to be learning everywhere we go, and it is just a partial schedule.
Wide. Yeah, big commitment there coming up the hill, and as you said, he doesn't have a lot of experience there, and he just really threw it in there up into the uphill there and just ran a little bit wide, had to correct it. But that's where the experience kicked in as well. He didn't try and overdrive the corner then. He just had to get out of it, settle back in, find your line again. I think he did those IndyCar races with Andretti, didn't he?
Correct, yes. 2010, my notes tell me. Watkins Glen in Mid-Ohio. Said he really liked Watkins Glen. He was a little bit disappointed that that was not going to be an option to race in the GT3 car. 20 seconds left in the session. Again, not quite sure what the state of play is. But everyone who's still on track, and it looks like there's still a handful circulating, including Adam Carroll, who's been really impressed with Will Hardiman, his co-driver, who has some GT3 experience over the last few years. So, with the timing that we have been given, we believe that, as mentioned, John Edwards did have the fastest lap in this session. If that is indeed the case, it would be pole position for ST Racing.
That was set on his second lap, if we can believe that information as well. So that's what he talked to me yesterday about this. It was just like a 1 lap. He had to get out there and get it done. We then saw him sort of like slowing down, maybe trying to stay out of other cars' way, protecting his tires a little bit, probably getting communication, getting a read. But with the timing and scoring issues, you wonder if he knew what was going on exactly.
That is a mystery. Maybe Amanda can shed some light. She's down with ST Racing.
Well, this team's been pretty certain that they were going to have pole position for race number 2 with John Edwards here on pit lane. I'm with now team manager of ST Racing and driver, John Miller. And when I got over here, I was like, so what's the plan for this season? And you said win a lot of races. Well, this is a good way to do it. Putting this team together, how did it happen?
Yeah, thanks. It's all credit to Ken Tan and Samantha Tan. And, you know, we've had a very busy off-season getting things ready. We've got some brand new GT4 cars that we're running. We've got Samantha and John full season in the GT3 car. So big thanks to BMW for the assist with getting us a factory driver to pair with Sam. Her progress this weekend's been incredible. She was basically 1/10 off of P2 in her group. Incredible performance from Samantha herself. And yeah, to be on pole at our first race of the year with kind of this new group of people we've got together is fantastic. And it's kind of a big testament to all the work we've been putting in the off season to get here.
We look ahead to the race number 1 happening later here this afternoon. What about the BMW Fitz Sonoma?
Yeah, you know, we tested here a couple weeks ago, and we've been really tuning on the thing and learning a lot about it. And we've had the car for a year, but we're really still learning a lot about it every time we come out. And we've tried some new things that have seemed to work really well for this track in particular, because this place is really tricky. It's low grip for everyone. So yeah, I think just again, it's all credit to the engineers and the crew that have been really working nonstop to find speed in this car, and we found some today.
Thank you, John. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So we believe ST Racing on the overall poll for race 2 of the weekend. John Edwards, the BMW factory ace, new to the team, new to the championship. That's a trend here this weekend, but getting the job done.
Yeah, you can see there he really just carved that chicane, which is such an important corner. You can sometimes kind of fumble your way through there, and he got good exit speed, and he just laid it down. He talked about it yesterday, and he came out this morning and obviously ate his Wheaties and got it done.
Looks like second would be the Riley Motorsports CrowdStrike Racing number 4 for Colin Brown, we believe. So that should be the front row for race 2, which is tomorrow, 2:15 local time here in Northern California. Race 1, though, is this afternoon, kicking off a brand new season of Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, 3:05 p.m. local time at Sonoma Raceway. So much unknown, so much uncertain, Calvin, but that's why it's going to be fun.
It was fun. There was a lot of uncertainty there, certainly in Q2 there in terms of identifying who exactly was at the top of the heap. But I think the big surprise of the day is the 28 car. Eric Filgueras will start that RS1 Porsche from the pole position here this afternoon. Just, I love the poise that he had the confidence to keep the car up front, get the clean air, and laid it down. That's a great start to their campaign.
All right, let's look at results, we believe, from qualifying 2 for race 2 of the weekend. John Edwards on the overall pole. Colin Brown is mentioned on the outside of the front row. How about Daniel Morad, who put in that qualifying effort for TR3? That would have him starting on the inside of the second row. Welcome back to Daniel. Very fast young Canadian driver. Elliott Skier, we believe, the 4th quickest of that group. On the pro pole, it would be Mario Farnbacher, but they're buried in the Pro-Am traffic, and Calvin, we expect that to be the case more often than not this year.
Yeah, I think so. They're pretty evenly matched between the Pro and the Pro-Am lineup, so don't be surprised to see some Pro-Am overall victories this season.
Pelly, Luck, and others. That would have been Haywin actually there in the second qualifying group down the way. Let's look at highlights from our first qualifying session of the season. This was the big moment in Q1 with Anthony Bartone sliding off, and he did not set a time.
No, just a little bit of movement there up through the hill, try to catch it, and ends up getting stuck in the mud. This was kind of strange. We had a race breakout in qualifying here.
Yep, didn't help either Ashton Harrison nor Chandler Hall. This, though, was the man of the hour. Eric Filgueras in his GT3 debut stuck it on the Rover pole position for race 1 of the season. Hardiman strong in his debut for the SS Racing team. Then in Q2, we think that John Edwards set the fastest time, and he did it quickly in that session. Then bailed to the pit lane, but will take the top spot and lead the field to green for the second race of the weekend to begin our first race weekend of the season. Thanks so much for joining us here for qualifying. Hope to see you back with us for race 1 of 2023, 3:05 p.m. local time.